Purdy and Jimmy Garoppolo are the same guy. That might be a good thing to some, a bad thing to others. The future of the 49ers isn't a superstar, but on par with his predecessor, who was better than people give him credit for. The hype has been too high on Purdy, the hate gone too far on Jimmy, so today let's dive deeper, go down layer by layer to reveal the reality that everybody is hiding from. Yes, Purdy went 6-0 in the regular season after Jimmy went down, then 2 wins in the playoffs, bing bang boom, before the weird NFC Championship fiasco. But when looking at their stats, they're the same. The way the offense is run, it's the same. And ultimately the 49ers' current quarterback situation is still the same. When looking at their numbers across the board, they are nearly identical. Jimmy had a weird year where he was thrust into action mid-season, but statistically speaking, he was extremely similar to Purdy. They both finished top 5 in the NFL in yards per attempt, top 5 in passer rating, identical touchdown to interception ratios, so why is it that Niners fans felt that Jimmy had to go and that Purdy is now the answer? Sure, the offense really started to pop when the latter took over. Higher team points scored, more deep balls. The offense on the whole just felt fresher, but really, things weren't that different at all. Obviously, the 49ers averaged 33 points with Purdy versus just 26 with Jimmy, so a whole touchdown better, yes, but Purdy taking over coincided with the 49ers defense exploding. Their turnovers per game literally doubled from 1.2 per game to 2.5, which gave the offense more opportunities to score. It's like you could feel them say, okay, we have a third-string quarterback in the game, it's time to take things to the next level, and they went from a really good defense to arguably the best. With more possessions, this led to more offensive productivity, where Purdy capitalized by kinda slinging it downfield more, but not as much as you'd think. While it is true that Jimmy wouldn't throw deep, definitely didn't throw deep outside, well, yeah, he didn't go deep much this year, just 9.1%, which was tied for 31st with Brady. Purdy was only up a little higher at 11.6, which was good for 18th. It's not like the 49ers suddenly started bombing the ball down the field. It just felt more so than before, probably because of how often Jimmy constantly threw quick, underneath over the middle. For years it's been quick, in-cut, drift routes, quick dig routes, slants, not pushing the ball down the field. But while Purdy did it more, the offense from a structural standpoint still stayed very much the same. Here you can see where each quarterback targeted compared to league average. Red is more, blue is less, white is the same. With the exception of Purdy targeting the deeper 15 to 25 yard area a bit more, this is still a very similar offense. Both quarterbacks excel at targeting over the middle, it's probably what Purdy does best, but that was always one of the main criticisms with Jimmy, that he'd force feed balls into that middle chunk of the field. And to be honest with you, so does Brock. He's firing it over the middle hell or high water, at times whether it's open or not. He has a great sense of timing, like Jimmy, and has great trust, poise, and confidence when throwing into these congested areas, which is also just like Jimmy. He's confident in his abilities to diagnose coverages early, which is rare for a rookie, and what helped him translate so quickly, where here he sees 5 defenders on the ball as opposed to the typical 4, which means the zone coverage they're playing has one less intermediate defender. When he confirms Leighton Vander Esch is pushing strong, he immediately, without hesitation, fires the ball to Kittle, who's cutting up the middle. What's key here is he's not scanning back to check if Kittle is open, then throwing. Right when his eyes are coming to Kittle, it's because he knows he's coming to him, because he knows he's open, which is critical in this Shanahan scheme. Then a few plays later, Dallas puts 5 on the line again, but are trying to fool him. Instead of rushing Anthony Barr again, they drop him into the middle to protect against that quick inbreaker from Kittle, so Purdy quickly processes that and zips it into McCaffrey. The problem is, he can be overly aggressive, similar to Jimmy, and honestly should have thrown at the very least like 5 more interceptions with all the dropped INTs he got away with. He can ride the line between aggressively attacking an area and jamming throws in and just simply not seeing defenders, and especially in the wildcard game when the Seahawks were squeezing his quick inbreakers with a zone linebacker, he really just didn't have an answer. He also doesn't have great arm talent, so he'll look to make throws that his arm simply can't cash, and a couple more interceptions here and there would have drastically changed his numbers and his narrative. Where he separates himself from Jimmy throwing the ball, at least statistically, is the intermediate 10 to 19 yard range down the field, where he completed 80% of his passes, which is basically a record according to PFF. Since their data started in 2006, nobody has completed even more than 73% of their passes in a season. 2019 Kirk Cousins got up to 72.9, so Big Flock Brock is in a tier all by himself in that area of the field in terms of his completion percentage. However, also according to PFF, he has just a 2% big-time throw rate to that area, which was 32nd best, where that metric is defined as a pass with excellent ball location and timing, generally thrown further down the field and/or into a tighter window. That last part, the tighter window thing, is where the issue lies. Purdy is throwing to receivers who are wide-ass open in this area, which inflated his intermediate completion percentage to a place no other quarterback has ever been. When looking at his big-time throw rate to all areas of the field, it's also at just 2%, which is ranked 35th. He's not asked to make challenging throws, which makes it harder to evaluate him since everybody is so open all the time. The statistic that best exemplifies this is Next Gen Stats' advanced metric completion percentage over expected. Basically, it takes the quarterback out of the equation and makes the stat more about the coach and scheme. Completion percentage over expected is based on factors like receiver separation from the nearest defender, where the receiver is on the field, how clean the pocket is, so the higher the number, the easier it is to complete passes in that system. Well, Jimmy and Purdy finished first and second this season at 69.3 and 69%, and every year of Jimmy's career, he's been top 5 with 2 other number 1 finishes. This is, of course, thanks to Kyle Shanahan. The Shanahan is as stiff as ever, and specifically this season, he's helped his quarterbacks by designing an elite run game, which has forced defenses to stay in 1 high safety coverages so they can keep the other safety in the box so McCaffrey doesn't kill them. Purdy faced 1 high safety coverages, cover 1 or cover 3, on 67% of his snaps. That's insanely high. And if you tell Shanahan what you're going to play before the game even starts, he can scheme up all the deep crossers in the world that'll be wide ass open. If the 1 high safety cuts the crosser, then there's nobody in the deep middle of the field, and Jimmy and Brock can hit the deep post for a big play. Shanahan has always been really good at this creating offense for his quarterback thing, so naturally, the next step to separate his scheme from his QB's ability is to take your normal completion percentage, so for Purdy it was 67.1%, then subtract that from your expected completion percentage, which for him was 69, and he and Jimmy finished 27th and 28th back-to-back with a -2% and -2.1 differential. Basically, they both performed under the expectation of the offense, and did so in an extremely comparable fashion. I mean, all of their stats are nearly identical. Now, I know all of you guys are going to say, Alex, Brock can move. He's different. Yeah, he is, but he isn't. According to the 33rd team, he was just 47th in scramble rate at 3.2%. Jimmy was at like 0.9%. And while his ability to extend plays helped this offense a lot and got him out of some sacks, his mobility wasn't all that impactful. Jimmy's pressure to sack rate, which means when he's pressured, how often does he actually get sacked, Jimmy was at 18.8, while Purdy was at 17.2. Obviously better, but those rank 16th and 20th. Yes, Brock can squirt out and evade a ton of sacks, but he likes to hold the ball longer, which gets him into more trouble. When he got pressured under 2.5 seconds, his pressure to sack rate skyrocketed to 24%, which was 4th highest, while Jimmy was all the way down at just 9.1, which ranked 28th, because he can quickly diagnose things and fire off an underneath pass. However, they flip-flop on passes over 2.5 seconds, where Brock can show off as a playmaker. When looking at things Jimmy can do that Brock can't, you're still seeing Brock really just be a half-field reader who's not going to be able to get to the backside. He's reading 1 to 2, and that's about it. Where Jimmy has the experience to get to a backside dig or a backside checkdown and really stretch out the defense in that way. Of course, there are times where he can't create with his legs when he needs to, like Purdy can, and man, he is basically a statue back there just waiting for a D lineman to take his head off. His deep ball did regress like no other this year, that hurt them a lot, and then he's also just going to make some bonehead plays that'll make you pull your hair out. Some of these downfalls were just infuriating for 49ers fans. People just kind of got sick of this kind of capped, holding back feel to the offense, and that's why Purdy has been such a hit. Some of his willingness to go deeper a little more, plus his ability to extend the play with his legs, have made the Niners feel like they're now uncapped, but I say not so fast. I do expect some of his intermediate accuracy to dip. No, I don't think Brock Purdy is the greatest quarterback 10 to 19 yards down the field of all time, and another area that's primed for regression is his touchdown percentage, which was at 7.6. Patrick Mahomes has only one season above 6.5, and Purdy isn't quite at his level. He had 4 passes behind the line of scrimmage that went for touchdowns. He had that Kittle Seahawks sneak play over the middle. I don't think he'll be as efficient in the intermediate, and he will throw for touchdowns less often. I don't hate him or think he'll flame out immediately or anything like that. I just want 49ers fans to be cautious and aware of who they pushed out as they bring the next version of him in. Jimmy Garoppolo has been to an NFC Championship twice and a Super Bowl once in just a handful of years. Bad quarterbacks don't just do that. Jimmy is more than serviceable. I think Brock will be serviceable, but let's temper expectations. He does have a higher ceiling than his predecessor, but also a much lower floor. The key, if it's not obvious, isn't that he possesses elite skill, but it's the man behind everything calling the shots. If Kyle Shanahan can continue to groom and develop Purdy and see consistent growth over time, the roof of this offense will pop, the Niners will finally have their guy, and Kyle Shanahan will finally get his Super Bowl.